that before we go into the chapter, we have to meet the academic vocabulary that we are going to learn through the selection. I'll share the PowerPoint. Are you here, girls?
Yes, teacher.
Okay.
Yes, teacher.
Here it is. We are with Phenomenal Woman. Phenomenal Woman, Chapter 8. Okay, what we learn, the inferences, and we talked many times about inferences. Inferences is when the reader makes an inference. What he reads, the sentences, plus what he already knows, the prior knowledge, equal the inference. Okay, so what I read is from the text. I underline the sentence or I underline the page number. Take that out. Plus what I already know. So my background information, my prior knowledge, prior experiences, added to what I read in order to infer, to put the two together and get the conclusion. Because sometimes the author wants us to make inference in order to get the theme, get the message, okay? And then the main idea, what is the main idea? Main idea is the central thought of the paragraph. Yani when we write an essay, we write 5 paragraphs. Each paragraph has a main idea. Yani we have a thesis statement or a main claim or a main idea for the whole paragraph and for the whole essay. And for each paragraph, I have a main idea. Okay? The most important information about the topic, like here, it's a very easy example. Kangaroos are interesting animals. They have excellent hair. Where is the main idea? Here is it. Main idea in paragraphs come at the beginning, not in essay at the end of the of the introduction. In main idea comes at essays in the body, in the bodies. Main idea, which we call it topic sentence. Okay, so inference. Main idea, all of this you know before, right? Then refrain. Refrain is in a poem, repeated verse or repeated phrase. It is repeated at intervals through a song or a poem, a repeated part in a song. After a stanza group of lines of poem in poems. I'll show you now. Refrain, repeated sentences. This is the stanza. Stanza group of lines here. The first stanza, because poem is divided into stanzas. Excerpts or novels or anything divided into paragraphs. Poems divided into stanzas. Yes, but leave me time. Girls, are you with me? I made the.
Yes.
I can't now after I finish it. You change your clock and then.
Serena.
Girls, are you with me?
Yes, miss. Yes.
Okay.
Yes, teacher.
Stanza is a group of words, of lines here in the poem. First stanza, second stanza. Refrain is a repetition of lines here or here. What is line breaks? Line breaks here. Here. After each stanza, there is a line break where one line of a poem breaks and a new one begins here. Speaker. Who is the speaker? We have in novels, in stories, we have narrator. We have author and narrator, right or not, girls?
Yes.
In poems, we have the poet and a speaker. So the speaker is like the narrator in novels. Speaker is the person who speaks or narrates a poem. A speaker is a speaker and the poet are not the same one. Or maybe the same one if it's a narrative poem. It's like narrator and author. Okay? Sound devices. to use the sounds of words to emphasize the
Teacher, how
meaning.
is there a speaker in a poem?
The one who says the poem.
The author who is the
No,
writer, the
author
poet.
writes it. Who says it is a speaker.
Who says it?
The
Who
same
says it
like
by
a story.
voice?
The same like a story. Author writes it. Who says it? A narrator.
Ah, okay.
So who's the poet?
The poet is the one who writes the poem.
Oh,
Like
okay.
an author for a story.
Okay.
Okay. Sound devices in poem. Sound devices in poem here. Alliteration, rhyme, repetition, onomatopoeia. Rhyme, you know rhyme before, since you were young. Rhyme is even in Arabic when you have the same voice. Okay? Sometimes it comes at the end of each line, end rhyme, or comes in the middle. Okay? This is rhyme, you know rhyme like hand and fan. Are you?
Yes.
Yes, sentences
Stand,
that rhyme
hand.
together.
Yes, rhyme, the words that rhyme together. Here is it. Where is the rhyme? I didn't write it. Okay. I thought that you know it. So then we have repetition. Or start with what? Alliteration. Start with alliteration. Alliteration is a repetition of constant sound. Alliteration, repetition of constant sound, like here. You know what are the vowel sound? A, I, E, O, U. Constant sounds are the rest of the letters. H, G, K. I have heard how hedgehogs hog the hedge. Ha, 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 ha. These are the same sound. This is alliteration. Alliteration is the repetition of initial constant sound in two or more neighboring words. Yani the words are close to each other or even the syllable. The wild and woolly walrus waits and wonders when we will walk by. All of it, it is a clear example of alliteration. Wow, 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 wow. Slowly, silently, now the moon walks the night in her silver shoon. This way and that she peers and sees silver fruit upon silver trees. From Silver by Walter de la Mara. Here, girls, moon and shoon is what?
Rhyme.
Rhyme.
Rhyme. Moon, shoon, rhyme. Slowly, silently, as alliteration. Yes. How much would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? Okay. I say to you, tongue twisters. Alliteration, as we said. Then onomatopoeia. Onomatopoeia is when you write what you hear. Buzz. It's written buzz. Whoosh, boom, shh, ouch, oops, z, shh. Here is it. Boing, woo woo, bum, crunch. We write it as we say it. So alliteration, onomatopoeia, then the
Sure.
rhyme.
It's like,
Yes.
interjections.
No. Oh, I'm talking here about the sound, not the part of speech.
Okay.
Here, the rhyming. Rhyming. So we took alliteration, the repetition sound. Onomatopoeia, z, hiss. Rhyming. We have end rhyming when I have the rhyme at the end. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height. My soul can reach when feeling out of sight. Height and sight, end rhyming. And then I have internal rhyme when I have rhyming in the middle of the line. When the words that rhyme are within the same line, okay? Where is comes from one is but sun, we wrote them songs. Where is comes from one is but sun, we wrote them songs. Then we have slant rhyme. Slant rhyme is rhyming but in one letter. Yani like here, look, GHT, O-N. Here, slant. Like it usually be the last letter only. Day, victory, head, shared, away, civility, y, okay? The end rhyming. When the
Teacher,
words almost rhyme,
Serena is
yes,
telling you that her cluster is not working.
okay. When the words almost rhyme but not quite, but it creates the same effect as a full rhyme. Repetition, when I repeat the same word or words again. Nobody, no, nobody can make it out here alone, alone, all alone, nobody but nobody can make it out here alone. Repetition, rhyme, onomatopoeia, alliteration. Alliteration, onomatopoeia, rhyme, repetition. You have anything hard?
No.
No.
Then visual imagery, he says to you that you can create an image in the mind of the reader or the listener using visual imagery by sight, sound, touch, smell. Phenomenal when we start taking the excerpt. Listen, girls, once there was Emily Dickenson. Emily Dickenson is the most famous American poet. She lived an isolated life. Some people say she lived an isolated life, and other people say that she used to hold parties at their houses, she and her sister. No one knows a lot about their life. Okay, she rarely
Teacher,
went
I'm
out
sorry.
of the house. Yes? Yes, good.
Let's continue.
Are you with me?
Yes.
Why no one replies me, girls?
Yes, miss.
I thought you were
We're here,
talking.
teacher.
You hear me? Are you with me?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
You still see my PowerPoint, right?
Yes.
Okay, I'll just keep this to the end. Emily Dickinson. Emily Dickinson, as I said to you, she was the most famous American poet. She lived a very strange life. She rarely left home. She didn't leave her home at all. Some people claim that she isolated herself, and other people claim that she used to hold parties every night with her sister, and that's why they didn't go out of the house. They invited people to join them inside. After her death, her sister found hundreds of poems. So all of her poems were published after her death, or all of her famous poems. Her sister found them in a big box, like treasure boxes, these. She found them and she started to publish them. Okay, Emily Dickinson, you have to know her name. We go to page 154 in the book, please. 154. Ragad, are you here, ya Ragad? Ragad? Ghala?
Nada, can I go to the bathroom?
Yes, Serena. Ragad, Ghala? Leah?
Yes, teacher, I'm here.
Ghala. Read ya Ghala, page 154 from your book.
Let me bring my book, okay?
Go ya Ghala. Leah? Leah? Not here. Malak Al-Haj?
Teacher, did you call me? I was in the bathroom.
Maya, be with us, ya mom. Okay. Malak Al-Haj?
Yes, miss.
Yes, read ya Malak, 154.
Preview concept.
Yes.
In this chapter, you will be analyzing poetry. Below are some poetic terms that will beneficial to understand as you analyze characteristics of different poetic forms. Stanzas, lines of poetry grouped together, use the communicate keys ideas similar to paragraphs in prose. Line breaks, where one line ends and another begins. used to slow down the pace.
The pace.
In
Pace is the speed and or the walking of the poem.
In traditional poetry, the ends of the lines
Rhyme together. The end of each line, they rhyme together.
Teacher, I'm sorry to interrupt, teacher, but I have a doctor appointment. I have to. Can I leave?
Okay, leave, yeah.
Thank you.
Malak, speaker.
The voice of the poem that reveals the chapter of thought is the speaker may be voice similar to or
Yes. The speaker may be a voice similar to the poet's or entirely different person. Then the sound devices. Malak?
Yes, miss. Techniques for playing with sounds to create certain effects. Examples include rhyme, alternation, and
Onomatopoeia. So we will read a poem by Emily Dickenson. Hope is the thing with feathers. Let's hear it.
Miss Leia's telling you إنه her laptop is updating. That's why she didn't answer.
Do you see my YouTube, girls?
Yes.
Yes, here is the poem.
Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me.
Girls, again, I want you to listen to it again and tell me. Again,
Are
you
we
listen
going
to
to
it?
analyze it now?
Yes,
Why today?
because we have to take the making connection today.
Okay.
Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. And sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. I've heard it in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity it asked a crumb of me.
So, girls, girls,
Yes,
how does Dickenson use the stanza and line breaks to communicate her ideas? Stanza is the division of lines. Each lines alone, 4 lines here, 4 lines here, 4 lines here. Stanza, 4 lines. When she divide the stanzas, when you divide your essay into 5 paragraphs, how help you?
It divides your main ideas from each other
Yes, divide your main idea, which make it easier
to understand,
to,
yeah.
yes, to understand. Okay, so how does Dickenson use the stanzas and line breaks to communicate her ideas? So the line breaks are short. The lines are short, girls. It's not too long sentences, short sentences. So short sentences are so powerful. They like smash the idea. Short sentences are powerful. Are you with me?
Yeah.
Yes, teacher.
I want you to. Here is it. Stanza, another stanza. Okay, so she presented the idea of what? What is her main idea?
Hope.
Hope. What?
Thing with feathers.
What is a thing with feathers?
A bird.
A bird.
A bird. Yes, hope is like a bird. So how does Dickenson use stanzas and line breaks to communicate her ideas? The lines, write it, girls. The lines are short. Line breaks are short. Giving the poem a what? It gives the poem a what? A feeling of pace, a good pace. Pace is like a flow. Hope is the thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. Okay?
Teacher, it's which page?
It is on 155 and it's in front of you in the PowerPoint.
Miss, can you say it's a metaphor?
Yes, of course it's a metaphor. Excellent.
Yes.
Extended metaphor because it is a long one.
Yeah, okay.
Who is the speaker here, girls?
The bird?
No, not the bird. Anyone.
Emily.
We don't know. We
Emily,
don't.
then-
Maybe Emily, maybe another one.
Miss, I want to ask you a question.
Yes.
Can you repeat the answer of question 1?
Yes, the line breaks are short. They give the stanzas a feeling of marching or pace, P-A-C. It gives the stanza a feeling of marching. And stanzas give you the idea that what? That hope is a
bird.
Stanzas give you the idea that hope is a bird. What sound devices are used, girls? Here, I've just listen. Hope is the thing with feathers that preaches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. What do we have, soul and all?
Rhyme.
Rhyme. Excellent. There is
Also,
a rhyme.
herd and bird.
Yes, here also herd and bird. And we have here what? Store and worm. It's called what, girls? It's called AB. Herd A, pattern A, bird A, storm B, worm B. So it's AB. So write it, please. Write it that rhyming in the first stanza, there is a rhyming. Soul and all. In first stanza, rhyming soul and all. Second stanza, rhyming pattern AB.
Teacher,
And-
the first
and-
stanza is what?
The second stanza, a pattern of rhyme, AB. And here, girls, also, I've heard in the chillest land and on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity, it asked a crump of me.
C and me.
C, extremity, me.
Me. So AB.
Miss,
Yes.
why Emily compares hope to a bird? Yani why she didn't compare it to another thing? Why bird exactly? Yani specifically.
Because birds perch into the soul, and the soul sings. Birds sings the tune without the words. They sing melody, like hope, and never stops at all. They fly all the time, and sweetest in the gale is heard. And so must be the storm, when there is a storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. Yani there will come a storm. I've heard it in the chillest land. I've heard this bird. It means hope came to me. Chillest land for a bird is like bad times for a person. And on the strangest sea, yet never in extremity, it asked a crumb of me. Okay, so it's like hope. It comes to you in the time of sadness.
So I want to ask a question. Why the last stanza you said A, B, A, B? Land and extremity, they are not, they don't rhyme together.
I didn't say A, B, A, B. I said A, B, B, B.
Ah, okay. C, extremity.
Can you repeat the first
they don't
stanza?
rhyme.
First stanza, here we have rhyme soul and all.
So what do we write?
There is a rhyming in the first stanza, and there is a pattern in second stanza, A, B, A, B, and A, B, B, B. By the way, here also A, B, A, B, feathers, words, soul, all. We talk about the rhyming pattern. So this is a poem written by Emily Dickenson. The line breaks and stanzas are short. The line breaks short. Are you with me, girls?
Yes.
Yes, we finished it. I want to show you only a small movie about Emily Dickenson. Here is it. Wait a minute. Can you see my... Can you see my YouTube, girls?
Yes.
Yes.
We have two videos. Which one do you prefer? Hey, Ted, I like Ted more.
Whether she's describing bickering families, quiet declarations of love, or juicy gossip, Jane Austen's writing often feels as though it was written just for you. Her dry wit and cheeky playfulness informs her heroines, whose conversational tone welcomes readers with a conspiratorial
it's Jane
wink.
Austen, not...
It's even been said that some readers feel...
Wait a minute. Wait. So we take the previous video, better for this or this. This is how many minutes? This is 10, this is 7. Let's take this one.
Tell all the truth, but tell it slant. Success in circuit lies, too bright for our infirm delight, the truth's superb surprise. As lightning to the children eased with explanation kind, the truth must dazzle gradually.
Tell all the truth, but tell it slant. But it is a very famous poem by Emily. Tell, but tell slant, alliteration, alliteration. Okay.
Teacher, we
For
took
every
this
man.
poem before.
Yes, I feel that, yes.
Yes.
Of all the poems of Emily Dickinson, it's a little funny that this one feels so direct. Dickenson is known for work that's full of ambiguity, odd manipulations in meter and rhyme, images that seem mysterious and sometimes out of place. It's poetry brimming with slant truth, in other words, poetry that puts into practice the very philosophy that's seemingly laid out here in perfect meter and matching rhymes. It strikes me as odd that the poem which best describes this philosophy is one in which she abandons it. On first read, it appears that Dickenson is so intent on getting her point across that she repeats it 4 times. First, in line 1, the most naked assertion, she implores, "Tell the whole truth, but tell it indirectly." Then in line 2, she says this another way. Success in telling the truth lies in a circuitous journey, not a direct one. In lines 3 and 4, she describes the failure of that direct approach. The surprise of direct truth is too bright for our weak and unstable capacity for delight. It will, in other words, short-circuit us. And finally, in lines 5 through 8, she hammers home the point again using lightning as a metaphor. The apprehension of truth must be gradual, she says, like a parent's explanation of lightning to children, rather than the lightning itself, which, if looked at directly, would blind the viewer. After these 4 phrasings, the meaning could not be more clear. The truth is something worth telling the world, but it can't be presented head-on. It must come at an oblique angle if the writer hopes to have any chance at success. Hey everybody, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it.
I thought it has.
You know what? Here.
Live
Success
of,
in
Emily. It failed me. Why this?
Hi, I'm John Green. This is Crash Course Literature, and today we're going to talk about this lady, Emily Dickinson. By the way, we don't have a book today because she's on my Nook. Emily Dickinson was a great 19th century American poet who... Mr. Green, I already know everything about her. She was a recluse, and you can sing all of her poems to the tune of I'd Like to Buy the World a Coke, like, because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. Stop me from the past. You cannot sing. Fortunately, your inability to sing does insulate us from copyright claims, because I, for one, did not recognize that as If I Could Buy the World a Coke. Also, Dickinson's meter is more complicated than you're making it out to be, but yes, you could sing most of her poems to If I Could Buy the World a Coke. Also, Yellow Rose of Texas. More importantly, these poems have a lot to say about the relationship between death and life, between faith and doubt, between the power of God and the power of individuals. So let's focus on that, because it actually might change your life and stuff. So Joyce Carol Oates once called Emily Dickinson the most paradoxical of poets, the very poet of paradox. And this can really frustrate students and literary critics alike, particularly when Dickinson seems to contradict herself within a single poem. Take, for example, this bit of light verse. Faith is a fine invention when gentlemen can see, but microscopes are prudent in an emergency. So this seems like a pretty pro-science, anti-religion poem, right? I mean, faith is put in quotation marks and called an invention. But she also implies the possibility of a different and valuable kind of sight only available to some people at some times, when gentlemen can see. And this is where it becomes important to look at how Dickinson, for lack of a better phrase, sees sight. Dickinson often imagines seeing as a form of power, so much so that seeing, not just literal sight, but also the ability to witness and observe and understand, becomes the central expression of the self. Like her famous poem that begins, "I heard a fly buzz when I died," ends with the line, "I could not see to see," associating the lack of sight with death itself. Dickinson also often played with the fact that this eye and this eye sound the same. Her poem beginning, "Before I got my eye put out," is about death, for instance, not just monocularization. In that poem, she clearly associates sight not just with the power to observe, but with ownership. She writes, "But were it told to me today that I might have the sky for mine, I tell you that my heart would split for size of me. The meadows, mine. The mountains, mine." Of course, in 19th century America, the idea that an eye, possibly a female eye, could own the mountains, the meadows, and the sky was a little bit radical. I mean, all that stuff was supposed to be under the control of God, not any human being who could see it. All of this is made even more complex and interesting by the fact that Dickinson's poems sounded like hymns, and throughout her life, you could see her faith waxing and waning in her poetry. In short, I don't think you can make easy conclusions about microscopes and faith in Dickinson's poetry, but that's precisely what's so important about it. Dickinson's work reflects a conflicted American worldview. I mean, we're a nation of exceptional individuals who believe that we control our success and our happiness, but we are also more likely to profess a belief in an omnipotent God than people in any other industrialized nation. All right, I know you guys want all the creepy, macabre details of Dickinson's biography, so let's go to the thought bubble. So Emily Dickenson was born in 1830 to a prominent family. Her father became a U.S. congressman and lived her whole life in Massachusetts. She was haunted by what she called the menace of death throughout her life, although then again, who isn't? Between 1858 and 1865, Dickenson wrote nearly 800 poems. But she also became increasingly confined to her home in those years, and eventually rarely left her room. She usually talked to visitors from the other side of a closed door, and didn't even leave her room when her father's funeral took place downstairs. Dickenson published fewer than a dozen poems in her lifetime. In fact, no one knew that she'd been nearly so prolific until her sister discovered more than 1,800 poems after Emily's death in 1886. Dickenson was considered an eccentric in Amherst and known locally for only wearing white when she was spotted outside the home. In fact, her only surviving article of clothing is a white cotton dress. This image of a pale wraith clad all in white has become a symbol of the reclusive, brilliant poet. But it's worth noting that for Dickenson, white was not the color of innocence or purity or ghosts. It was the color of passion and intensity. "Dare you see a soul at the white heat? Then crouch within the door," she once wrote. She called red, the color most associated with passion, fire's common tint. For Dickenson, the real, true, rich life of a soul, even if it was physically sheltered, burned white hot. Thanks, Thought Bubble. Oh, it's time for the open letter? An open letter to the color white. But first, let's see what's in the secret compartment today. Oh, it's a Dalek. Stan, more flagrant pandering to the Whovians. Dear White, you're a complicated and symbolic... Ah! Dalek! They're not very bright. So White, you're often associated with purity, like wedding dresses. You can symbolize heaven or the creepy infinite nowhere where certain parts of Harry Potter and all of Crash Course Humanities take place. But many 19th century writers inverted those associations, like Melville's famous Great White Wall of Whale, the terrifying blankness of nature. And to Dickenson, White, you were the color of passion and intensity. This reminds us that our symbolic relationships aren't fixed. We're creating them as we go communally.
So I wanted you to have to know about Emily's life. Okay, girls?
Okay.
Yalla, go to your break and see you tomorrow.
Teacher, I have a question.
Yes, yes, please.
Next week
Bye.
we have a writing test, صح?
Next what?
Next week do we have a